Longhorn fans, Sooner Nation, welcome to episode 71 of the Boomer Bevo podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma. Kevin, your game against Baylor made y'all look like the number 3 team in the country. You beat down the Baylor Bears. In the first 8 plays, you had 3 sacks, I think 2 tackles for loss. It was demoralizing for an Oklahoma fan that had picked Baylor to cover. Baylor looks inept. They look terrible. Dave Aranda should be fired. I would venture to say that it's Baylor who looks so bad versus y'all that look so good. What are your initial thoughts on that game?
Well, first of all, it was a great performance, especially by the defense.
Not by Baylor. Not by Baylor.
No, not
Baylor
by Baylor.
had a terrible performance.
Especially on offense, man. The quarterback isn't good. They couldn't protect. The offensive line got completely dominated by our defensive line. The receivers were dropping passes. Just a nightmare performance from them offensively. But, hey, I'm excited about what Texas did and what Texas can be. We're still getting better, man.
Y'all looked like the team you were supposed to look like. For the Oklahoma Sooners against Cincinnati, defensively, and it feels so good to say this, another gem of a defensive performance. Danny Stutzman looks like the All-American I predicted him to be in the preseason. I love what I'm seeing from the defense. We held Emory Jones in check. Offensively, Kevin, we can't run the ball, bro. We cannot run the ball effectively, and it is concerning, and it is going to impact us as Big 12 play proceeds.
Yeah, I agree. First of all, the defense, really, really good performance, right? I didn't see anybody really out of position at all. The coverage was good down the field. You stopped the run. Emory Jones was not good. And I'm going to give you guys some credit for that, for making him look bad. But, man, he missed some reads. He missed some throws. He just never looked comfortable. You guys were starting to get good pressure on him. The coverage was confusing him. I don't think he expected you guys to be as fast as you were, because he looked like he never got into any sort of rhythm throwing the football.
He really didn't, and he didn't really get in a rhythm running the ball either. Cincinnati didn't run the ball very well, and we were told that they had a really good running game, but it was never really a concern. I think they might have had one decent run, but not really a big deal in terms of that. Pressure in the red zone really locked down Cincinnati. They just weren't able to move the ball. But this is what happened to them against Miami of Ohio. So it's, for Oklahoma fan, it's hard to know how good a win this is. I mean, defensively, we know that it's a good win, but we just don't know how good Cincinnati is. It's just another team like SMU and like Tulsa. We just don't know how good they are.
Yeah.
But for you guys, we know Baylor's not any good, but you beat them down, and that has to make you feel pretty good.
Yeah, it does, right? We talked about Texas playing up and down to their level of competition, right? We saw that against Rice. We saw it against Wyoming. So it was nice to see them focused, playing a conference opponent that you're better than. Just go up there and beat the crap out of these dudes, and that's exactly what they did. I really like how it makes us look going forward. I'm excited.
Other games that went on, Ohio State and Notre Dame. What a slugfest. I don't know if it's those offenses aren't very good or if that was just a defensive masterpiece. Either way, that was big boy football hitting each other. But what do you think about the final 2 plays of the game?
Well, it's hard to stop an Ohio State offense when they're that close to the goal line, right? But it's even harder to stop them when you only have 10 players.
10 players? I was waiting.
Defensively.
What is happening, dude?
And Kevin, twice. It's not like it just happened once. It was 2 plays.
Dude, they had a timeout. It was out of a timeout, Kevin.
Out of a timeout.
Out of a timeout. Listen, I don't know who's our boy, Marcus Freeman. I don't know who is responsible for substitutions on the defensive side of the ball, but you've got to fire him. It's a fireable offense. You have to hold people accountable. You have 10 players again in the biggest 2 plays of your career, of your season, and you only have 10 players on the field. You got to fire the guy. I don't think that's a hot take. I think you have
We're talking about a potentially program-defining moment for Marcus Freeman. right? Remember, he played football at Ohio State. So to be able to get the win over his team for Notre Dame, I mean, this would have sent their recruiting out of this world. It's unreal, man. I can't believe that happened.
And then on top of that, whoever runs your defense, if it is Marcus Freeman, 3rd and 19, are you freaking kidding me? Stop him on 3rd and 19.
Yeah, with the very inexperienced Kyle McCord playing quarterback too.
Stop him. It was unbelievable. But as far as the hitting goes, it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun to watch. I don't know though. It's a very odd season. We're going to talk about the rest of those games. But first, Kevin, in a follow-up to the color analyst of the football team, Teddy Lehman, being on last week, we have another guest. And she's going to be on to talk about the first athletic matchup of the year between Oklahoma and Texas. And that was in women's volleyball this weekend. How do you feel about that?
I feel great about it, given the result.
That's exactly right. Okay, hold on. Kelly Files is on as our guest. She is a former D1 D1 volleyball player at Southern Miss, former OU assistant volleyball coach and associate head coach for over 13 years, the current ESPN Plus analyst for the Oklahoma Sooners. How you doing, Kelly?
I'm great. How are you guys?
You look fantastic. It was like you were ready for video. This is just amazing.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Kelly, we are the Boomer Bevo podcast, as you well know, and we love all things OU Texas, except when it results in Texas beating down Oklahoma over 2 days in volleyball. What the heck happened this weekend?
Well, Friday night, honestly, was a great match. Did you guys see it? Did you guys watch?
I did.
It had everything back and forth. First set, third set. I mean, it was dramatic. Sooners played really, really well. I was really proud of them going against a ranked team, their first home opener. Well, in the Big 12, they played UCLA the following weekend, and they played really well. They split with UCLA. Longhorns came up big on that first set, 28-26. So we played to 25 points, if you don't know. So it went into extra points. You have to win by 2. So Texas came up huge, and they kind of dominated in that second set. And then in the third set, again, dramatic finish, the Longhorns winning in extra points, 30-28. And honestly, looking back on it, it didn't even feel like a sweep. It didn't feel like a 3-set victory for the Longhorns because the Sooners played so well Friday night.
Yeah, but we're the University of Oklahoma, Kelly, and I don't know that we ever define playing well in a loss. However, I do understand what you're saying, because compared to day 2, it wasn't the exact same situation, was it?
No, it wasn't. So yesterday evening, start of the match, back and forth, just like Friday night. But the Longhorns 25-22 in that first set. And then the wheels came spinning off the schooner, if you will, for sets 2 and 3. And the Sooners, I think they just errors after error in that second set. And then the third set, the coach made some changes for the lineup, and it didn't really get any better, unfortunately.
So what do you think about this as far as the close games on Friday night? I was able to watch him, and it was back and forth. Do you think that can give OU some momentum going forward this season?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I really think that, when they're looking back and they're watching video, they've got to be really proud of themselves. They made some critical errors, like missed serves and key moments. And I think, and that's just something on their end that they can fix. But I think it gives them a lot of hope. I mean, honestly, the Longhorns are a great team, as you know. So I think it's going to be great for the Sooners going forward.
In the match on Saturday, you talked about the errors. The errors were 8-24 in Texas's favor, and the hitting percentage was 338-90 in Texas's favor. What does Oklahoma? How do they address that as Big 12 season progresses, and what's the outlook for the Sooners in the Big 12?
I mean, I think listen, the Sooners have the personnel. They've got the big hitters. They've got Alexis Shelton, who led the team in kills both nights. But they also have Taylor Preston. Both of them they're outside hitters. They've got a new middle transfer from Liberty and Lydia Burtz. They've got the offensive power, I think, and they have a phenomenal setter. I mean, I talked to both coaches this going into the weekend, and they were both praising the setter for Oklahoma. She's phenomenal. So they have the right pieces. I'm not really exactly sure what happened in that second set. Just some miscommunication, some just mental errors, and then it just became contagious. So going forward in the Big 12, I think they're going to do some damage, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people.
From a Texas standpoint, coming off a national championship season, do you think they have the talent to repeat? I know they lost some great players off last year's team.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that? I feel like that as a coach. So Jared Elliott, winning the national championship, and then the expectation, right, to win it again for sure. And I think this preseason, they had a tough preseason, but they had 3 losses starting into Big 12. They lost their first match to Long Beach State. Then they lost to number 2 Stanford, and then they lost to number 11 Washington State. So not really bad losses, if you will, the all ranked opponents except for Long Beach State. They have a freshman setter in Ella Swindle, who is phenomenal, honestly, but she's a true freshman. And so at times she's just making freshman errors, communication errors. Do they have what it takes? I think they do. They've got the right personnel. Their defense is phenomenal. And Asia O'Neal, she is leading the nation. Well, she's number 2 in the nation in total blocks. She's leading the Big 12 in blocks. And they did not disappoint on the defensive side. And I think last year watching their team, that was the huge difference in how they won the national championship was their defense. They've always had the offensive power, but the defense is what really turned it on for them last year. And their libero this year, Emma Halter, she's phenomenal as well. So defensively, I think they've got what it takes. And Jared Elliott says, hey, we just got to keep improving week to week. And he's not concerned.
Kelly, we're going to transition into the SEC next year.
Yeah.
Oklahoma and Texas football are fired up to get out of this crappy conference and go to the SEC. What does volleyball think about this situation, specifically OU? Is this a step up in competition? Has the Big 12 always been a powerhouse in volleyball? Like, what does it mean for both programs to go to the SEC?
Well, the SEC is great, and I think in almost a lot of sports, right? In volleyball as well. Right now, this week, well, new rankings will come out tomorrow. But if you look at last week, SEC has 5 ranked teams. Big 12 has 6 this week. So I think the realignment for the Big 12 as far as volleyball for this year is really strong. It made the conference stronger. You're adding in BYU, you're adding in Houston. Central Florida is receiving votes this week. So it's a strong conference. It always has been a strong conference. I think it just got stronger. SEC, I think, is going to get stronger now that Oklahoma and Texas are joining.
See, Kevin, that's the attitude we need to have when we play football, is that the SEC is getting better with us. Not that we're entering the SEC. We need to take that.
No, I think it is. Yeah. We're making this thing better.
Yeah.
All right. Kelly, we have a new coach.
Yeah.
And I know you said that our personnel is in a pretty good spot, but when I saw Texas, I don't know, those girls look pretty good. What do we need to do to improve going into the SEC? What's our new coach going to do? And I'm just curious, does the transfer portal impact volleyball like it does football?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the transfer portal is just a whole nother ball game. And I think in any sports, and just like in football, it's affecting volleyball as well. And that's how they got their middle, Lydia Burtz and from Liberty. She was doing crazy things in that conference at Liberty, and then she's coming here and she's holding her own. She'll be a great player. When you, as a head coach and you're taking on a program, it's just going to take some time. They've got new offensive systems, defensive systems. So it just takes time to kind of build your system. And head coach Aaron Mansfield has stated it. And they've been progressively working their systems into it. And so I think the Sooners will only continue to improve as the season goes on. I mean, listen, you have to bring your game day in and day out in this conference, like I mentioned earlier. So I think they're going to be fine. I think it's going to take some time as a new coach, kind of building your program, where you look at Jarrett Elliott and he's been there for so long. And Was just inducted into the USA Volleyball Hall of Fame this past spring. So, I mean, he's a seasoned coach at that institution, right? And so I think Aaron Mansfield's going to do a phenomenal job, and I'm excited to, be a small part of it.
Kelly, thanks for jumping on. We do have one more question for you.
Okay.
Brandon, your husband, probably knows this. You might not know this. Kevin and I are big lawn guys, right? We love a freshly cut lawn that just, really shows that the person paid attention to it, takes care of it, has an eye for detail. I've noticed your lawn in North Belmar has repeatedly won Yard of the Month, sometimes Yard of the Year. It is a fantastic lawn. Now, your husband doesn't take care of this lawn. This is a Kelly Files product. What do you specifically do to achieve the perfection that your lawn has attained this year?
It's that attention to detail, and just getting out there and doing the work.
I love it. I love it.
And doing it weekly. You can't let it go.
No.
So after this call, guess what I'm doing?
I love it, dude. Kelly, that gets me fired up.
Let's do it.
Look, Kevin, dude, you got. We need to see some pictures or something on Twitter because this yard is fantastic. Kelly, you were awesome. Thanks for jumping on.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, OU has a couple more wins coming.
Oh, they will. No doubt.
But this is great, dude. We really appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day enjoying the lawn.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Thank you, Kelly.
How about that, Kevin?
That was
Kelly
great.
Files, voice of the Sooners, 2 weeks in a row.
Let's go.
Oh, dude, listen, dude. That gets me fired up. I'm fired up right now. All right. Let's see. Do we need to do anything here?
No.
All right. Kevin, listen, here's the problem. Texas is really good at volleyball, and Oklahoma wants to be where y'all are at. That's the reality of it, right? And that's hard for Oklahoma fan to take because in a lot of other sports, we compete at a very high level against you guys, but volleyball's been really tough lately. Your girls are really, really good.
Yeah, Jared, he's been there forever, right? He's built that program up, finally got the second natty this past year. So, yeah, I mean, he's established program. And what he's able to do, like Kelly was saying, is also get great transfers. It's not quite to the level of OU softball. It's not that kind of domination, right? But everybody wants to go there. You have no problem getting recruits or transfers because it's no matter where you come from, it's a step up.
I love it. All right. Hey, we broke down. We talked about the Notre Dame Ohio State game. That is insane that they had 10 players. Big win for Ohio State. I don't know that it changes their trajectory for the season because they still have to go play a really good Penn State team, a Michigan team, and so on. Notre Dame, on the other hand, this puts them behind the 8 ball in terms of the playoff. And it just, I won't say it was unnecessary to lose to an Ohio State game, but to only have 10 players on the field is pretty unnecessary.
Yeah, and this is a good time for them to be able to steal this game, right? Ohio State, young quarterback. Obviously, they have incredible talent at wide receiver, experienced talent too. But with the young quarterback, that game being at home, it was all set up. And they were the better team. I thought they were the better team throughout the game. That was a great defensive effort and a great defensive game plan that they had. But when it just came down to it and those winning plays, they just didn't make them, and Ohio State did.
I know.
Real quick, though, before we move on, did you hear Ryan Day going after Lou Holtz in the post game?
I thought that was okay, dude. I was going to talk about that because I was going to talk about that, and I was going to talk about Lanning going after Coach Prime. Like both of these coaches, like focus on your own team. You just won the game. Like what are you doing?
I thought it was interesting. Yeah, I'm like Lou Holtz is old. Is he 90?
I don't know. Lou Holtz is an American football treasure, right?
Yeah,
he's not the dude you've got to go after. If he said something. Whatever it was he said, he was the former head coach for Notre Dame. They won a national title with Lou Holtz. He can kind of say whatever he wants. Like, I thought it was pretty weak.
Yeah, exactly. You already wouldn't prove this. So, like, hey,
yeah,
who cares what he says?
Just say scoreboard and walk off to call out that. That was
weird. A little surprised.
And we're going to let's talk about Oregon and Colorado. It was a beatdown. It was an absolute assertion of dominance over the Colorado Buffaloes. They never had a chance in this game. Then in a similar fashion to Ryan Day, Dan Lanning comes out after the game and says, they're trying for clicks. We're trying for wins. That's the difference in these two teams. I got to tell you, I don't want to be a Deion defender, but I don't think that's true. I think Deion's trying to.
Yeah. I don't mind him saying what he said, but I don't think it's true. they're trying to win games. And Deion is an old school coach. He is. Like, he is really, that is a disciplined team. This guy showed up to Colorado and was like, hey, listen, guys, like, we're going to be buttoned up. We're going to do things the right way. Y'all all have to go to class. Everybody has to sit in the front of class. Y'all can't wear shorts and slides to class. Like, that's how old school Deion Sanders is as a head coach. So, no, he's trying to win, man. So, again, great job by Oregon, right? We talked about the mismatch in the trenches, what it would be. It was even worse than we imagined.
It was rough.
Right? We knew that they had issues protecting Shedeur already this season. And he's been hit more than any other quarterback in the country so far. And obviously, it just went up a level. I think they had 7 or 8 sacks on him. I'm concerned, man, that he's going to get injured at some point because he can't keep taking hits like this.
Mario Cristobal was the coach there for 1 season before landing. Is that right? Maybe 2?
I'm not sure. Maybe 2, yeah, before he got the Miami job.
It is clear he did some really good recruiting there.
Yeah.
And then Dan Lanning has continued that because Oregon has an absolutely stacked team. We've seen almost all the Pac-12 teams play. You know, I like Utah. That's probably who I'm rooting for. But what an ugly game against UCLA yesterday. They did win it, but it was ugly. Oregon
keeps finding ways to win like that.
Is Oregon the best team
without their quarterback?
Is Oregon the best team?
I don't know. It's hard to say, man. I still like Washington too.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about your boy. Yeah, no, yeah. And they beat down who they play, Cal.
Cal, and that offense, man. That offense looks unstoppable. We also had Oregon State and Washington State in a good game out there. Washington State won. Their quarterback, Cam Ward, you know, he's a transfer from Incarnate Word in San Antonio. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. That's
he transferred from Incarnate Word to Washington State. He was there last year too. And he was incredible yesterday for them. So they beat Oregon State, who I think is good too. So that Pac-12, it's hard to pick who's going to win.
Wait. Let's go back to this Incarnate Word discussion real quick, just as a point of clarification. Are they D3 or NAIA? I mean, they're low, right?
No, they moved up. They have moved up.
They're not Division I though, right?
I think they might be.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, all right. Well, that doesn't make the jump.
They moved up.
That doesn't make the jump as incredible as I thought it was. Interesting part about this game, 2 interesting notes of this game. Oregon State scored 21 in the 4th quarter against Washington State's 3. So they made a furious comeback to try to make this game close. And then number 2, the Washington State coach, again, with these coaches calling people out. Why is he calling out Lee Corso on game day? Who cares? Did you see this? I
did see that. That one was actually worse than Ryan Day calling out Lou Holtz. Like, what are you doing? What do you care what Lee Corso says? He's 95 years old.
It's just these coaches. I guess they're trying to maybe they're looking at Deion, right? And they're seeing how the motivation is working for a coach like him. And they're trying to create these perceived slights. But it's I just think it's unnecessary. Like, you just beat a good Oregon State team. Be happy about beating a good Oregon State team.
Your quarterback was 28 of 34 for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. How about you just talk about how good he was?
Dude, I agree.
But the thing about Dan Lanning, before we move on,
is
that, you know, when he does that, he's trying to get clicks too. Right? He's trying to get clicks. When he does that, having the cameras in the locker room, it's not like he has to do that. You don't have to give access to ESPN, to your locker room for your pregame speech. He's trying to get clicks too.
This is the pot calling Deion black. That's what this is.
Yes.
You get that? Yes. That's a double entendre.
I do. Yes.
Real quick. All right, let's just go down some other notable scores here. Florida State finally slays the Dragon at Clemson. Even with a down Clemson team, it took them to overtime. Is this kind of an example of just it's really, really, really hard to knock the king off the mountain?
That is exactly what it is. That is a big-time win for Florida State. I was really impressed because they were not playing well offensively. And they just kept fighting and eventually made some plays. And how about that play they made on defense? Safety comes, blitzes, hits Klubnik, knocks the ball out, recovers it, and runs it back for a touchdown. I mean, you want to talk about a big-time championship type of play. So, man, Florida State, I wouldn't be horribly surprised if they were ranked number 1. I mean, they'll probably still have Georgia there. But that's an impressive win. Clemson, despite them being not as good as we're used to seeing them, that is still a really tough place to go and win a football game. So for them to get that kind of monkey off their back, it was huge for them.
USC, I won't say they struggled against ASU, but they allowed ASU to put up 28. I don't know if Colorado is going to have Travis Hunter back next week, but if they do, Colorado can outscore USC. I'm just saying that they do not have the trenches, the level of talent in the trenches that Oregon does. That's not what Colorado has to go up against next week.
It was sloppy, right? They played like a team who knew that they were a 35-point favorite, right? That they were just going to go in there and beat Arizona State. They were sloppy. I mean, weird turnovers, just bad snaps,
Kevin,
bad exchanges.
Put this in perspective. Oklahoma State beat Arizona State.
Yeah.
I mean, what is happening? Like USC, play some defense, dude. Like it's insane. We know Bama beats Ole Miss. It didn't look pretty, but they did cover the spread 24-10. Ole Miss did not have the offensive firepower I expected them to have. Bama looked like Bama defensively. Offensively, still a little sketchy, but they won the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that Jalen Milroe should be their starting quarterback and always should have been their starting quarterback. He did make that one really bad read down in the red zone when he threw that interception. But other than that, he was solid, man. He was solid. And that defense, though, they just completely shut down Ole Miss. Judkins wasn't a huge factor. Jackson Dart, they really got after him. I think they had 5 sacks. Dallas Turner finally showed up and reminded us the type of player that he could be. So it was good to see. But a tough loss for Ole Miss because they thought that they could get Alabama this year. They really wanted to win this one, and they still couldn't. At this point, I don't know if Kiffin will ever beat Saban.
If he can't beat him this year, I'm not sure he can because
exactly.
Jackson Dart's a whatever he is, 4 or 5 year player at quarterback. Judkins, good running back. You got all the talent in the world. I mean, I say all the talent in the world. You're pretty talented roster.
Yeah.
Alabama is clearly down. They just are. You can see it. The eye test shows it. But at the same time, Alabama's Alabama. And we talked about it last week, right? Will this validate your win? I don't know that it validates your win. And again, I don't know that your win needed to be validated, but it just reinforces the fact it's really, really hard to win in Tuscaloosa. Like just
correct.
Staying in the SEC, and this game has a little bit to do with maybe some conference comparison. LSU squeaks by Arkansas 34-31. I don't think anybody expected the game to be that close. I know Arkansas didn't win the game, but this was a BYU team that beat Arkansas as well at Arkansas. Is the SEC struggling this year, and is the Big 12 a little bit better than we hoped?
Well, I don't know about the Big 12, man.
Neither do I.
Yeah, no.
I asked the question. I asked the question, and as I heard it come out of my mouth, I said, that's a really stupid question, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't feel good about the Big 12 at all, honestly. Besides, I mean, I think there's a gap between Texas, Oklahoma, and then the rest of the teams, honestly. We'll see about Kansas, right? They looked okay, but even their offense wasn't great against BYU. So I don't know, man.
They put up 38.
Yeah, but they had 2 defensive touchdowns.
But look, I know, man. But look around the country. All right, Michigan and Rutgers, 31 points. Florida State, 31 points. Ohio State, only 17. Iowa doesn't even score against Penn State. Like 14-7, Utah, UCLA. To put up 38 points this week is an indicator that at least you can put the ball in the end zone versus some teams that can't even put the ball in the end zone.
That is true, but I mean, I think Daniels had about 131 yards passing. So they won that game.
No, that's correct. Yeah.
They won that game because they had those 2 defensive touchdowns, And I'm not saying Kansas sucks or anything, but it wasn't a great performance offensively. Yeah.
2 more games, and then we'll get into the Oklahoma Texas matchups. West Virginia Downs Tech. What the heck is happening to Texas
Man,
Tech?
Listen.
What is going on?
You want to talk about a bad loss. The Wyoming loss was bad. I think this one's worse, right? Because you can say, okay, well, we went to Wyoming. We didn't realize that they were any good, the elevation, but there's no excuse for going to Morgantown and losing to West Virginia, to Neil Brown, a coach who seems to live on the hot seat, right? I thought Neil Brown would have been fired 2 years ago from West Virginia, and to go up there and lose, I mean, come on, man.
Dude,
Everything runs through Lubbock, though, right?
Did you see my tweet?
I did.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty
Yes.
good. I'm
It
not
was.
going to give it away. Check it out on Twitter. It was a great tweet, I think. And then finally, dude, we should have bet the over. We should have bet the over.
Oh, I know.
Iowa State, 34-27. Those teams are terrible. I watched quite a bit of that game. That's bad football. That was that looked like a MAC game, like a MAC game between not very good teams, that play on like a Tuesday. I mean, it was just bad.
Yeah.
I don't even know what is happening with those two programs. Those are programs that with Mike Gundy and Campbell, Matt Campbell, Mike Gundy and Matt Campbell, the names of those two coaches, they have been routinely put up for bigger jobs, bigger opportunities. They're roundly touted as having, good, solid programs that always give. Those programs are in bad shape right now.
Yeah, we're a couple years removed from Mike Gundy being offered the job at Tennessee and Matt Campbell being offered the job at Michigan.
Yes.
Think about that.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's possible that both programs would be in better shape if their coaches would have left. I don't know. Iowa State has excuses, right? Hunter Decker's losing him in the summer to whatever, and a couple other players. I guess you can get behind that. Oklahoma State, though, they have no excuses. They lost. Mike Gundy lost Spencer Sanders as a quarterback.
Yeah, correct. I think he was just done. He was done with Spencer Sanders, right?
And why?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, how better?
Yeah.
He's always had problems with relationships with his players. It goes back to wearing the news TV shirt and all this different stuff. He just is kind of an odd duck. And I think you talk about him being done with Spencer Sanders. I think it's just as likely that Spencer Sanders was done with Mike Gundy.
Yeah, correct. It was a relationship that needed to end.
That takes us to our picks, Kevin. Whew, you had a winning record, dude. You did pretty good. 3-1-1. I had the Notre Dame game as a push, right? Because I had us at 3 points.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. When we picked it, it was 3 points. I don't know what it ended up being. And
it's whatever it was when we picked it.
When we picked it, so I had it as a push. We both lost the Colorado game. Looking back on it, I think we both got caught up in the hype. I don't think either of us picked Colorado to win, but
I don't think they would get beat down like that.
Dude, it wasn't even close, obviously. No. And then you had Bama winning and covering. You had Texas winning and covering. You had Oklahoma not covering. So you went 3-1-1. You were back at 11-8-1. I went 0-4-1. However, if you're betting with the Boomer Bevo podcast and you've been doing it all year, you're still in the money. I'm at 10-9-1 for the season. So
there we go.
It's going to take a little bit better performance to stay there. Before we talk about the games, let's give our title sponsor a shout out, Brown O'Haver. If you've had a losing week like I did, call Brown O'Haver, 405-735-5510. They work for the insured, not the insurance company. If you've had a loss to your business or your home from wind, fire, theft, tornado, vandalism, whatever the case may be, and this doesn't have to be a loss that you've had in the last week. It could be one you've had 6 months ago, a year ago. Give us a call, 405-735-5510. Let us take a look at your insurance loss and see if we can get you more money. The odds are we can. We typically get our clients 30 to 40% more than we get on our own. So give us a call, 405-735-5510. Kevin, you want to start with Oklahoma or you want to start with Texas?
We'll start with Oklahoma. We'll go in order of the way the games went.
We gave a little preview of this before Kelly jumped on. Defensively, we were just fantastic. It was nice to have Dason McCullough back. I think he makes a difference. I don't know that it was noticeable that Harrington was out, but it definitely impacts just having that competitive depth that I think we're going to need. But I liked having Dason McCullough back. Hopefully, Jared Kanik is back. Did you see the uproar on Twitter from Cincinnati making fun of him dropping down to the ground?
Oh, yeah. The timing of it did look interesting, right? Because they were running some tempo, and the fact that it was after a play, and it was so far after the play, the next play was about to start when he went down.
I got to tell you, I do not think we should be that hard on Cincinnati Twitter. I mean, their guys were dropping like flies, and especially in the first half. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
And it was just typical stuff. But you're going to make a joke
what's
about
the injury with him.
Well, I don't know, dude. I guess he fell down, had a hard time catching his breath, and was spitting up blood, which I don't know, doesn't sound very good.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that because it was the crowd was booing because of timing of when he went down.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. It looked like, and we see this all the time in college football, right? Teams running tempo, guy goes down, grabs his leg, just to slow things down. So that's why they think that. But you never know, right?
Oh,
kid had a legitimate injury.
They put him in an ambulance. So if he was faking it, it's like the best long fake ever. You know what I mean? Like,
we're really trying to show that.
Yeah, have the ambulance queued up. We're really going to show these Cincinnati fans. I don't know if all that's true, but hopefully he's back. He played a very, very good game up to that point. Kip Lewis got in as his backup. And Kip Lewis, I tell you what, man, he doesn't have the size of Kanik, but he brings some energy and some speed. I just love what we're doing defensively. We held Emory Jones to 235 yards passing, got 2 interceptions off of him. He only ran for 42 yards. Their team rushing was only 141 yards, which we talked about. But my God, offensively, we have got to run the ball, dude. We have to run the ball.
Yeah, I mean, the passing game was good, right?
Gabriel,
26 of 38, 322 yards.
It was fine. It wasn't good.
Not good. You won't say it's good.
It was fine. It was passable. It won us the game. You cannot miss wide open receivers, especially kill shots. You have Jaleel Farouk running wide open down the middle. You have to hit that shot. Listen, dude, he's a 6th-year senior. He's the starting quarterback at the University of Oklahoma. I'm not saying to be benched. I'm not saying any of that stuff. What I'm saying is if you want to be the team that you want to be at Oklahoma and you want to compete against teams like Texas, you've got to hit that shot. It's that simple.
For sure.
And then don't go down 5 plays later and fumble the ball in the middle of the field. That's a bad look for our quarterback. I don't love it. His performance was fine. It was adequate. We won the game. It was not good. Sorry. Back to what you were going to say about the running game.
Hey, no, this is
just get fired up.
Your team.
I'm sorry.
Hey, no. You're the OU guy, so you tell me.
I'll tell, dude. I will.
They got to get going with those running backs. That offense is at its best when you're running the inside zone. Safeties start cheating up, linebackers start cheating up. You hit the play action and you hit the deep shot. That's when that offense is at its best. If you can't run the ball, it's never going to be the dynamic offense that it can be.
Kevin,
so, what do you think is going on?
Well, first of all, Teddy Lehman in our recap from last week talked about the introduction of the quarterback run game, which I like seeing. It relieved some of that pressure off the offensive line. That extra runner out in the field, just another dimension. I didn't think it was overdone. 11 runs, 23 yards, a touchdown. Nothing crazy, but I think defenses now have to know that we're going to do it and we're willing to do it. But here's the stat on the running game. 34 rushes for 103 yards, 3 yards per carry, and the long was only 19. It's not good enough. If you can't do that against Cincinnati, and I know Cincinnati has a good defensive line and Don Corleone and all this, whatever, dude, it's still Cincinnati. They lost to Miami, Ohio. This is not a great team. You've got to run the ball against them. And I know a lot of people are going to be on this with me. To me, it's a Levy situation. It's almost like the timing of how he calls the plays. Like he'll get in a rhythm and then go away from it. And he'll get in a rhythm and then run a sweep or a reverse or something. And it's like, why are we going wide when we just need to go right at it? We've got a little rhythm going.
If it's working, just do it until they stop it.
And Marcus Major is fine. And I thought Marcus Major was fine, right? Same as DG. He had a fine game, adequate to win the game. I still think Tawee Walker, after 4 games, gives us our best shot to be dynamic and to make plays in the running game. He only had, I don't have his touches.
It was 5 for 15.
He only had 5 touches. Dude, it's not enough touches. It's not enough touches for whoever your backup is, okay? If your backup's Javonte Barnes, if your backup's Sawchuk, if your backup's Walker, it's not enough touches for those guys. You've got to give that second guy a chance to kind of get into the game, okay? If we think Marcus Major gives us our best shot because he can receive out of the backfield and he can block and whatever, that's fine. If he's a guy, I'm willing to say fine, whatever. You got to give your second guy more touches. As far as Barnes and Sawchuk not getting the ball, I don't care. If this is the decision they've made, then fine. That's the decision you've made. Then we need to be more productive on the running game with the dudes we have, and we're not there yet.
Yeah. And do you think it's an offensive line thing? You think the holes just aren't there?
I think it's always really easy to blame the offensive line. Sure. Okay. I still think it's kind of the play calling. In the middle of the second half, Joel Klatt talked about how we got away from a certain run package and kind of went back to a bread and butter run package. And that's when I saw a little more holes, both for Tawi and Marcus Major. So maybe it's the actual play calling and the play design that needs to be looked at. I still think it's the timing of the play calls. I just think that when we're trying to establish a rhythm, let's establish a downhill rhythm. We don't need to go side by side. Let's establish the downhill rhythm. If we don't want to establish the downhill rhythm, that's fine. Then throw the ball. Because we're effective throwing the ball. Dylan Gabriel can throw the ball. Our guys are dynamic. Listen, dude, Andrew Anthony is our number one. He's our number one. We've asked all year, all summer, who was going to be our number one. It's Andrew Anthony. The guy is making really good plays, really competitive catches. He's really good.
7 catches for 117 yards.
And then you got Farouk, Stoops, and Anderson. Dude, that's 4. I am very happy with those 4 receivers. I still don't know where the hell our tight ends are. But that's fine. If they're not part of the offense, if that's the decision we've made, okay, whatever. I would love to see the tight end a little bit more. I mean, I look at Texas and I just get jealous all over when I see that he led y'all in receiving with 5 for 110. It just makes me want to. I hate it.
Well, he's a special athlete, man. Like he's rare even for us.
Yeah, but you still have to feed the tight end the ball, though.
You got to. Last week he had no receptions. I still don't know how that happened.
Sark's an idiot. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the OU game. Is defensively, I'm really, really happy. Offensively, I'm almost left with more questions than answers, because it's like we've had 3 games now to sort some of this stuff out, and I feel like we haven't sorted it out, and it's just really, really.
Let me ask you this: do you feel better about 20-6 than you would about 42-28?
That's you know what, dude, that's a great question, Kevin. And I'm not being funny. That is a great question. I think I do feel better. Okay. We've yet to play an offense where we feel like we have to shut them down. So we're living on like 10 years of scar tissue from not having good defenses. So we're so used to, as Oklahoma fans, needing to outscore the opponent. And so to have a defense that can hold the opponent, even though it's hard to believe, hard to grasp, and I don't know that I'm there yet. But yes, with the exception of Kansas for a couple of times, it was since K-State in 2015 that we did not allow a Big 12 opponent to score a touchdown, right? So that's almost 8 years.
Yeah.
Again, just hard to believe, hard to conceptualize having this kind of defense. Here's the problem with every OU fan, me in particular. I want both. I want the defense that holds us back, and I want us to go put 42 on Cincinnati. That's what I want to see. And is it unrealistic? Probably, but that's where we are mentally as an Oklahoma fan. We don't trust that our defense is going to only hold them to 6 points every game.
You're a fanatic. That's what we are. So
that's
what we do.
Texas played Baylor again at the beginning of the episode. I talked about how y'all looked like the number 4 or 5 team in the country, whatever rankings you were looking at. You had to feel really good about this win. 38-6. Look at the 38-6, right? That's what I wanted to see from Oklahoma. That's what y'all gave us. So why can't I want what y'all have?
Hey, nothing wrong with that, man. Look, I was really impressed. I thought Ewers was really good. 18 of 23 for 293 yards and a touchdown. I think he had one throw that was interception worthy, a little bit scary. But other than that, I thought he had a really good command of the offense. He was patient in the pocket. He made some really good throws. He had the rushing touchdown down the sideline. I think it was like 30 yards, something like that. So, no, it was just an impressive performance. I continue to be impressed by Jonathan Brooks, the running back. Yeah, 18 carries, 106 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
And he had that big run. Was it the second quarter? Maybe the first quarter? Where, that was just a real dynamic run. It was good to see C.J. Baxter back, right? I mean, he was kind of hurt, kind of banged up, but he got some run a little bit.
Yeah, he was able to get his first touchdown of his career, hopefully first of many. 6 carries for 21 yards and a touchdown. So nice to get him back out there. I still don't think he's 100%, honestly, but it was nice to see him out there.
Receiving, we talked about Sanders with 5 for 110, AD Mitchell 3 for 46, Xavier Worthy 3 for 31, and a nice throw. He had a touchdown too, and a nice throw down the sideline to Sanders on a trick play. Whittington maybe didn't give you the production you expected, but I don't know if you needed it against Baylor. It's hard to spread the ball around that much.
Exactly. It was just I call it a professional performance, right? You're playing against a team that you know you're clearly superior to, and no messing around. Just went out there and handled business. They ran the ball effectively, set up the play action game. They made some big plays in the passing game. The defense completely shut them down. We know how they struggled on offense leading into the game, right? So we shut down their running game. We got after the quarterback. We just handled business and got out of there with a really good win. So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to seeing what this can become because I really like this team.
Anthony Hill Jr., did he lead y'all in tackles again?
I believe he did. Let me pull that up. I've got the.
I'm telling you, man, this kid's a player, dude, and I do not like him being a player. I do not like the fact that he's sitting up on that edge and getting. I wish that we were giving. We talked about this a lot last episode. I wish we were giving Adibari the run that Texas gives Anthony Hill.
Yeah, I did see PJ out there a lot yesterday for you guys.
Yeah, he was being held all over the field. We haven't even talked about penalties yet.
Yeah, let's just.
Yeah, you want to talk about that
real quick? No, before we go on. Yeah, Anthony Hill had 6 tackles. But Jalen Ford, man, I think he's one of the best linebackers in the country. He had 8 tackles, a tackle for loss. Then he had the interception. They were on the Baylor got down into the red zone. They had it there. I think 4th and goal. They throw it to the end zone. He intercepts it to end their drive and give us the ball back with a lot of momentum. So he continues to be one of the best linebackers in the country. He's good at everything. He can stop the run. He's really good in pass coverage. I think that's the 6th interception of his career. You know
what feels really good is when you talk about Jalen Ford, and it's all due him, right? He's having a tremendous year, and he really is playing great. Like, you deserve to talk about him as much as you want. Is you can talk about him as much as you want, and I'm sitting back saying I would not trade him for our middle linebacker. I'll keep Stutzman. That is an awesome conversation.
I like Stutzman.
That's an awesome conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. You have your guy who's great, and I'll take my guy that's great.
I know.
Yeah, we'll live with it. Yeah,
I absolutely love it. Now Sanders, on the other hand, that guy makes me, jealous. But defensively, I look at him and I go, yeah, no, he's really good. I'll stick with Stutzman. Like, I think Stutzman's just having that same kind of year. I mean, interception returns for touchdowns, leading this team in tackles. And then you look at Ford. I mean, what year is Ford a junior?
He's a senior.
Oh, is he a senior? Stutzman's only a junior, right?
Yeah, he's a junior. He was a freshman in 21 that year.
Anyway, Anthony Hill Jr. Looked fantastic.
Jumping ahead. Defensive line too, real quick, man. I got to talk about those guys. Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy. Dude just looks unblockable. 4 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks from the defensive tackle position. So the defensive line, man, they just continue to impress me. And they've got the depth, too. They're bringing in guys. And I'm not seeing a drop-off from the first team to the second team. They're even playing third-team guys. So that's what excites me for the rest of the season. It's just the depth that they have there up front.
What the hell is wrong with Dave Aranda right now in his offense and defense? Look. All credit to Texas. Y'all did play great. You looked really good. But come on, dude, you got to admit, Baylor looked terrible.
They did, especially on offense. They did some good things on defense. They did get some pressure on Quinn. I think they got 3 sacks on him, which I thought was good. But yeah, overall, man, this is not a good team this year. It's that offense is really concerning. I think their quarterbacks, the Sawyer Robertson kid, going into the game, he was completing 45% of his passes. I mean, what are we talking about here? And I know they played Utah, but outside of Utah, they played Texas State and Long Island University, which I've never even heard of before they played them. So what did he go for? 20 of 35 for 203 yards. He was sacked 5 times. Also threw 1 interception. They ended up going to the backup kid, RJ Martinez, 9 of 18 for 102 yards. So
even he's only at 50%. No, I don't even know. It's really weird. Aranda was the belle of the ball in the Big 12, especially 2 years ago when they won the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
But boy, he's fallen, and it is It is. If you're a Baylor fan, that confidence and the excitement that you had even a couple of years ago has quickly gone out the door.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone.
You get to host and we'll have a complete preview episode, but I do want to get your early week thoughts. Y'all get to host Texas's nemesis, Kansas Jayhawks. They are also 4-0. This is a 4-0 matchup at DKR next week. You talked about it already. Jalen Daniels had an okay game, but he's still a pretty dynamic player. Going to be better than anything Baylor was rolling out at you. Is this a game where you start to feel a little nervous at 4-0, or do you feel like we're going to just go ahead and take care of business and be ready for the Red River rivalry?
Well, it always concerns you when you play a quarterback like him, right? A guy that can throw and run. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned about it. I think, on paper, but the games are played on the field. But on paper, I think Texas is a better team. I think they should handle their business against Kansas. I think they should have a good defensive game plan that can at least somewhat neutralize what they like to do. But, man, that kid, he's a gamer. And the thing about Kansas is they're not afraid of anybody, right? They're not going to be worried about coming to Austin. It's not going to faze them at all. So I think we're going to get their best effort. If they get our best effort, I think we'll win the game, right? But we'll see which version of Texas shows up. We've seen so far this season, right? It's just up and down.
I think, Oklahoma plays Iowa State. It's a 6 p.m. kickoff next weekend, which is nice to have a night game. This has to be a game that, to me, it's what you saw, what Texas experienced against Baylor is what I want to experience against Iowa State. It's not a very good team. They're terrible offensively. Our defense has been flying high. Let's continue that momentum. But offensively, we have to take advantage of an inferior opponent. We just have to take advantage of an inferior opponent. So this should be a game that Oklahoma just beats early, just exactly the game plan that you talked about this week with Baylor. Just beat them down early, move on, and let's get ready for Texas.
Yeah, it's a big week. It's a big week, right? I'm hoping for a professional performance from Texas. And like you said, you should get the same from OU and try to get that running game going because you got to have that for the Texas game the following week.
Let's get an update on Bijan Robinson in the NFL. Who does Bijan play this week?
I believe they play Detroit. They're on the road this week. And I expect him to be dynamic like he is every week.
Is Detroit 0-2?
No, they beat Kansas City in week 1.
Oh, that's right. But
yeah,
they lost a bad game. They lost a bad
well, Seattle.
Game.
Yeah, Seattle to me is very similar to Detroit. They almost look like the same team. It's very interesting watching them play against each other. Jared Goff and Geno Smith, a lot of similarities between the two of them. So, yeah, but Bijan, I expect him to have another big game. The Detroit defense is not great. He already has 180 yards rushing this season. He has 75 receiving yards on 10 receptions. So I think he'll have a heavy workload. Not too heavy, right? I don't think they want to wear him down. But again, he's just going to be involved in the running game and in the passing game. He puts a lot of stress on the defense. So it should be a fun game to watch.
Baker is on Monday Night Football against Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles. I can't imagine a scenario where the Bucks beat them, but it's pretty exciting to get a primetime game between Jalen and Baker.
Yeah, and that game is in Tampa, right?
Maybe. Is it?
It is.
Okay.
So you never know. Going on the road for them. Like I think they're playing free. They're playing right. Nobody's expecting anything from them. So just go out there and let it rip. Right?
I think,
what do you have to lose? It is that Tampa. Just confirm that.
I think that for Baker Mayfield, it's every additional year in the league is like house money, right? Like people just want to doubt him. They keep wanting to get after him. And so every game, every year is just house money. And he does get to play free. And I think he's at the point in the career where he's like, I don't really, I don't have to prove myself to anybody. I took the freaking Browns to the playoffs, I've won at 4 different teams. I've won a Heisman Trophy. I don't have to prove myself. I made plenty of money. And I just think the dude goes and plays, and I think he's in a really good spot from as far as that goes. I just don't know that he has the talent to go, or, that Tampa Bay has the talent to go up against Philadelphia right now.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the offensive line going against the Philadelphia defense. And Jalen Carter, the rookie defensive lineman from Georgia, who fell a little bit in the draft. This dude looks completely unblockable so far this season, man. So he's a guy that can come in and just wreck your offensive game plan. So I'm excited to see what he does.
I always think that's interesting how programs or how NFL franchises kind of lean in towards one program, although obviously it makes sense to lean into Georgia players, but they've got a lot of Georgia players on that team.
They've got a lot.
You remember back in the day, Baltimore always had a lot of Oklahoma players. Like they'd have Mark Clayton and Kelly Gregg and other offensive linemen and stuff. They would just always have a lot of Oklahoma
players.
Didn't
they draft Dan Cody too in the first round?
Yeah, they might have drafted Dan Cody, and of course they went with Mark Andrews and CD, not CD, but
Ben
Hollywood
Powers.
Yeah, Hollywood Brown was on that team. I mean, they kind of always gravitated to Oklahoma players. Does Texas have an NFL franchise like that?
I don't know. We had a couple guys on the Ravens too. I mean, obviously Tucker and Devin Duvernay is there. So, but I don't know if we've had anybody like that. There's 5 or 6 guys from Texas on one NFL team. Our guys have been pretty spread out. How many Georgia guys do they have? The Eagles. They've got a lot.
They have a lot.
Linebacker, Jordan Davis. They drafted Nolan Smith at the edge. We talked about Jalen Carter. So, yeah, it's a lot of Georgia guys, man. But winners.
The problem with Georgia this year is they do not look like the world beaters that they even looked like last year, right? They just, they allowed UAB to score 21 points, right? Yeah. 49-21. They just don't look as scary, but I still don't want to have to play Georgia.
Correct.
You're
right about that. It just seems like a year, and we talked about this, I think, at least the last 2 weeks. It just seems wide open, man. If you're a team that's not normally in the national championship discussion outside of the normal Big Four that you get, man, why can't you win the national championship this year? Why can't you go steal one? Right? You got to think Penn State is wondering that, right? We can get one. Texas, Oklahoma, teams that just typically aren't right there. Well, I know Oklahoma's been in the playoff 3 times, right? But, there was a little bit of a level in between Oklahoma and – has it been 4 times?
Yeah, 4 times.
Okay.
Baker twice, Kyler and Jalen. Yep, 4 times.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, with this year, there just doesn't seem to be that one dominant, scary Alabama team or Georgia team or Clemson team or Ohio State. No one's really like that this year. So,
which makes the Red River rivalry on October 7th all the more important. I mean, This is like early 2000s because you're not looking at the SEC going, well, we're all playing for second place against Georgia or Bama. Where Clemson's not as dominant as they once were. Maybe it's Ohio State still, but they still have to go through Michigan, right? So I'm just not convinced that there's, to your point, anybody out there, which takes us to early 2000s where this game has national playoff implications. Like the winner of this game is in the driver's seat to win the Big 12 and make it to the playoff. The only problem is, versus those years back in the day, is it's not an elimination game. Okay? So we can play, and guess what? We get to play again. And I think we will. I have not seen one Big 12 team that makes me go, I don't want to play those guys. They're terrible. I mean, it's Oklahoma and Texas. We're going to play on October 7th, and we're going to play again in December. And I think at this point, the winner of the second game is going to the playoff. I just think it's going to happen.
It seems to be setting up that way so far. It seems to be setting up that way.
Kevin, enjoy your day of NFL viewing. Thanks again to Kelly Files and OU Volleyball. This was amazing to have her on the episode. It was really, really fun. Kevin, have a great time watching Bijan. Boomer!
Hook 'em.